Like, basically, in the 80s, there was some homies, right, with a lot of money. And in the 80s and 90s, America wanted to undermine any kind of government that was even USSR adjacent or was a trade partner or thought that the USSR was poggers, ideologically communist, all that good stuff, right? So in an effort to destroy those countries, what they wanted to do, especially...
Okay, so this is so disgusting.
You should let him finish his sentence, though. I don't.
Okay.
I
with
think
respect to Afghanistan, was take on the most reactionary fundamentalist weirdos, arm them, give them weapons, arm them, and then also arm them with the most important tool of all, knowledge. Give them not Lambos, but the Lamborghini of like anti-aircraft weapons, and also train them with said anti-aircraft weapons, and also more weapons that they gave, like small arms, and then use them against these governments, these individual governments.
Okay, can I?
Yeah, this is like Charlie Wilson's war, right?
Right. Okay. So, first of all, I don't know why he's calling giving people Stinger missiles to shoot helicopters knowledge. Maybe it's just a reference from like 10 years ago, but okay. Mm-hmm. This is like, I fucking hate this. This is dog crap, leftist brain rot world history. America's just walking around in the 1980s saying, hey, let's destroy any country that is pro-USSR, right? Afghanistan is just this innocent, everything's going so swell in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the big, bad, evil U.S. says, hey, here's a bunch of crazy fundamentalist religious types, give them a bunch of Stinger missiles. Right. That's the world that Hasan thinks exists.
Right. Yeah.
Which is totally insane and wrong.
We selected them because they wouldn't let girls go to school. That's why we helped them.
Well, he could have literally just spent 20 minutes just reading through the fucking Wikipedia page on this shit to get more insightful information about this. Okay.
It won't add up to America bad, though, because...
That's true.
I mean, America is kind of based here.
That's true. So, basically, let me give you the Cliff Notes version. Okay. You have the king, the last king of Afghanistan, King Zahir. He becomes king when he's 19 years old. Okay. And even though I think his uncle did a lot of the ruling at that time. But he ruled for 40 years, which is the longest reign in Afghanistan history since the 18th century. So you can see how volatile it's been. If 40 years is the longest reign, but okay. He goes to Italy in, let's see, what year is this? 1973. He goes to Italy to get surgery, and his cousin enacts a coup when he's out of state and basically just takes over in a bloodless coup because I guess the king was weak and his cousin was more liked. And he said, now I'm going to be in charge now. And he enacts he calls it a republic, but it's kind of like a republic in name only because it's a one-party system. Like there's no one to vote against.
This is the cousin that took over, right?
Yeah, this cousin's name is Daud Khan.
Does it say how they broke up? Did he just text him and say, hey, I'm running the country now, don't come back?
That's exactly what. In 1973, he sent a carrier pigeon.
Right.
No, he sent a collect call. Said, would you like to accept a collect call from, I'm the king now, bitch! And he's like, no, I don't want to accept that call.
Fuck you!
Right. So anyway, this guy
get well soon. Hope your surgery went well. Don't come back.
Basically. So this guy becomes president. Well, basically one party president. 5 years later, 1978, a guy named Taraki seizes power. He's a communist.
Taraki?
Okay. Taraki, yes.
Wow.
Taraki seizes power in a bloody coup.
Right.
Which ends up killing almost all of Daud Khan's family. Okay.
Wow.
And he conquers the country in the name of socialism.
Whoa.
And this is interesting.
Oh, okay.
Go like this, because this is very reminiscent of Sri Lanka, which we talked about a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So when Taraki takes over the country, he implements a bunch of reforms in the name of socialism and abolishing the bourgeoisie. And they say this specifically. He's like, we must get rid of the bourgeoisie and have, workers unite. So the two policies that he implements that cause all these problems is that they abolish mortgage debt that people owe.
What?
Which,
okay.
Yes. Which at first you'd be like, oh, people would like that. But the problem is that by abolishing mortgage debt, the farmers were unable to actually acquire credit to buy seeds and equipment moving forward.
How were they using mortgage debt to acquire seeds?
Because that was just I don't know, that was just the way that they were doing it.
Okay.
Because they didn't own, I guess it was because they were taking loans off their own land in order to buy things to give to the workers.
The reason I ask is because a socialist government takes over. Did they abolish private property? Did they commandeer the land, and that's why they abolished the mortgage debt? Well, that was the second thing I was going to get to. All right. Okay. So that makes sense. They abolished the mortgage debt because they're like, sucker, you don't even own this land anymore.
Right. And so the second thing they did was quote unquote land reform.
Right. That's land reform.
Land reform, right. Oh. And so what they did was they literally just took land away from landowners without compensating them on top of it. They didn't even they just said yoink, and they took the land and they gave it to, the people. They gave it to sharecroppers, landless laborers, nomads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So this makes sense. They didn't pay them for the land, but they just abolished what they owed on the land. So that's why they abolished the mortgage debt. That makes sense.
Right. And now the government at the time claims that they took and redistributed 1.5 million acres of land to 285,000 families. Now, people think this number is probably way higher than it really was, but whatever. So anyway, as you can imagine, this is going to cause a lot of anger in the country if the government just starts seizing people's land.
Yeah, property and giving it to their political supporters, which that's exactly how it happened.
Right.
Oh my God, this is.
And so I was reading this article about this, and the quote said, "The upheaval and the uncertainty of ownership," so people didn't even know who owned land anymore, and the lack of credit, combined with a severe drought, caused a general fall in production, leaving Afghanistan heavily dependent on grain imports to feed itself.
Wow.
Just like Sri Lanka, yes.
So they basically made property rights completely insecure, and everyone's like, why am I going to go out and work hard? I don't know if I'm going to get paid for this. I don't even know who owns the land that I'm working on anymore. Someone could come in and take my crop away from me halfway through. I'm relaxing. I'm not going to work. Yeah.
And if the goal to all this, they said, was to create and establish a United Workers Peasants Alliance. Okay.
Wow.
But of course, this is why this was part of why this was so dumb, was that before this, Afghanistan was a feudalistic society, and it was a very rural society. So people had no concept of being a United Workers Alliance or any of this stuff. This is all just gobbledygook to them. And so basically, what happened was huge swaths of the country essentially just almost immediately broke out into revolt when these reforms were implemented, and civil war started.
Of course, they lost their land. They lost their livelihood.
Right. Well, and then also because since they were communist, as I'm sure you can imagine, a lot of people in Afghanistan are Islamic, and they felt that there were a bunch of atheists with foreign ideas essentially coming into their country and dictating how they should live. So
this is crazy. So Afghanistan fell apart because somebody tried to implement socialism. And we're watching an avowed socialist who's advocating for socialism in America.
Yeah.
And we're reviewing his video.
Yep.
But he has no idea. The lesson of Afghanistan, he is not even really capable of comprehending.
No. Because he's operating under this delusional idea that I assume, I don't think he talked about it, that they were totally totes fine, until America, America attacked.
Well, it's a good thing we got the backstory here.
Right.
They actually
but wait, it continues though.
Oh, okay.
So only a year into Taraki's rule, he's assassinated by his number 2 guy.
Oh, so dictator's handbook. It's straight dictator.
Yes. His number 2 guy, Amin, kills him after a year. And it's funny because they go into this article I was reading, was going into how Amin played him up. It was very like Kim Jong-un-ish. Like they were playing him up like he was this like great person, almost chosen by like socialist God, that he was like the promise, the prince that was promised and all this stuff. And then as soon as he like blows up Tariqi's ego, and then when Tariqi is so egotistical, he stops listening to Amin. Amin's like, "Oh, I'm gonna fucking kill you."
That's hilarious.
So,
wow.
and then, but this is a big problem because the Soviets, they had been supporting Tariqi, and they were kind of sus of Amin. And so when Amin kills Tariqi, they're kind of like, okay, they're not very happy with this.
Right.
And so, after like the year after, because I think Amin was only in power for a year, essentially. Spoiler warning. The Soviets are sort of trying to, basically the Soviets tried to assassinate Amin after he kills Tariqi. They tried to assassinate him twice, and both of them fail. And they're very funny. Apparently the Soviets are really big into poisoning people.
Yeah, they do that a lot.
Yeah, very big into poisoning people, which, you know what they say, poison is the woman's weapon. But okay, I digress.
Do they really say that? I've never heard
in
that
Game
before.
of Thrones, they say that.
Oh, I didn't
The
watch
weapon
Game
of
Thrones,
women
so.
and eunuchs.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, Putin. Jeez.
I mean, yeah.
Being
So anyway,
soy.
the first time, and it was so bad, the Soviet ambassador to Afghanistan was literally involved in one of these plots. Like the ambassador of the country is trying to poison this guy.
Wow.
The first one,
Well,
this
who
is
else
hilarious.
are you going to get? Sitch, that completely makes sense.
Yeah, okay. The first one is hilarious. They successfully poison Amin.
Right.
But the Soviets were so incompetent that they didn't tell the Soviet embassy in the country that they were going to poison Amin. So Amin gets poisoned by a Soviet agent. Then he goes to the Soviet embassy, and the Soviet doctors give him the antidote.
No way. Oh my
Yes.
God, no. That's hilarious. Oh, that's hilarious.
And they're like, wait a minute, you didn't tell us. Like, he comes in, he's like, I'm poisoned. They're like, oh, that's awful. Here's the antidote. And then they're like, wait a minute, you did what? Like, well, you didn't tell us you were the ones that poisoned him, Stalin. What were we supposed to do?
Wow. So, someone died for that one.
Yeah, someone was killed for that. Then the second one is pretty funny. It was weird. It's like this day before the Soviet Union invaded. So I'm not even sure what the point of it was. But the day before they invade, Amin and a bunch of people are eating dinner, and they poison all of their drinks, essentially everyone's drinks.
Right.
Fuck them. Who's there? But Amin is saved by some good old-fashioned Americano. Okay.
What happened?
You know what he was drinking?
No way.
He was drinking the most American drink of all time.
Beer?
No.
What's more American than beer?
Beer was not created in America, Adam. How dare you?
Oh, really?
Of course, beer's like...
I
been
mean,
around
haven't
forever.
we perfected drinking it, though?
I mean, that is true. I don't know. I think the Irish have perfected drinking it, if we're going along stereotypes. But no, Adam, what is the most American drink that's ever existed?
Coca-Cola?
Yes!
I got it!
Amin is drinking good old-fashioned American Coca-Cola.
Wow.
And for whatever reason, the properties and carbonation of Coca-Cola
No way. No
dilutes
way.
the poison.
No way.
Yes.
So everyone else is drinking water or something and they all die?
Well, no. So everyone was drinking Coke, supposedly.
Right.
And so the carbonation and properties of Coke dilute the poison so that it just knocks them out briefly, but doesn't actually kill anybody.
I thought they used radioactive substances when they poison people.
This was in the 70s.
What is up with
Who the
this?
fuck knows what they did? Okay.
This is why they moved it up to palladium.
Yes, they're like, we're tired of this bullshit.
When we poison someone, we want them to fucking die already.
Right. Well, actually, I don't know, because a lot of times when the Russians, even today, they poison someone, like the person will be like horribly disfigured or scarred, but they live. They don't even die.
Yeah.
I don't know, they're not very good at it. So anyway, after these failed assassination attempts, the Soviets finally decide to just invade and kill him the good old-fashioned way,
Right.
just to blow up the building that he's in. But and Amin was so stupid because the entire time this is happening, the entire time people were trying to kill him, he still doesn't believe the Soviets. Like all his advisors are like, the Soviets have turned on you, the Soviets have turned on you, and he just doesn't believe them. He's like, no,
Really?
communism, yeah. He's just so head up in the ass of communism that he thinks this is some sort of liberal imperialistic lie that the Soviets turned on him. And even when the Soviet troops were coming to his country, he thought that they were coming to help him quell the civil war.
Wow.
He didn't think they were coming to kill him. And it was only until they literally started firing on his building, he's like, oops, I guess I was wrong.
He turns to his advisor, hey,
Yes.
you were right.
Yes. Right. So this is when the Soviet Afghan War begins. The Soviets kill the men. They install their own puppet leader.
Wow.
Which is exactly what the Russians wanted to do in Ukraine, by the way. But this is part of why this is so, what Hasan is saying is so disgusting. Okay. Half of all villages in Afghanistan were destroyed during the Soviet war.
Right.
Can you imagine that?
That's crazy.
Half of every place that anyone lives is destroyed.
Yeah.
Okay. The Soviets litter the place with mines, which they neglect to pick up when they leave. Right? So there's just fucking mines everywhere, killing people, innocent people. It was even crazier. I couldn't even believe this. The population of Afghanistan in this time period was only 13 million people. Okay. You know how many people are estimated to have died during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan?
How many?
2 to 3 million.
Wow.
2 to 3 million fucking people. 2 to 3 million Afghanis were estimated to die out of a population of 13 million people. That's almost 25% of the entire population. That's insane. Yes. That's totally insane.
Yeah.
And I even looked up to compare it to the bloodiest war that America's ever been in. America's lost the most life in was the Civil War. And it's estimated that 2% of the population died in the Civil War. And that's the bloodiest war U.S. ever been.
25%.
Yeah, 2% died. This was 25%. If the upper estimate of 3 million is right, it's almost 25 fucking percent. It's insane. And I looked up, there's like graphs that show, the population of Afghanistan. And in the time period, there's just like a visible dip.
Wow.
In the line graph. It just goes boom. It's just totally insane. And so for Hasan to be sitting here like, oh, America's just walking around in the 80s. Like, how do we screw over the USSR? It's like, no, the USSR, like, and this is why these people are so they're such hypocrites. America has never done anything like this. The loss of life in Vietnam, I think it was around the same thing. It was like 2 million, but it was out of like a population of like 30, 40 million. Okay. There's way more actual people fighting in the war, which is why way more people died. With the Soviets, and this is part of why, they have all those images of the guys with the Stinger missiles. They would just take helicopters and they would just sit and just mow down like villages of people or just launch missiles at people.
Yeah.
It was just horrific what was happening there.